given a target of 20% ethanol blending in fuels by FY26. So this particular percent was 3% or 4% in 2018. So basically,
Yeah.
the government is trying to increase it to 20% in the next 8 years, right? And now currently India is at 15% ethanol blending into FY24. Sugar is very an important, let's say, raw material in the value chain of ethanol. Sugar stocks ran up on the premise that शुगर है, वो लोग इथेनॉल बनाएंगे, उनका प्रॉफिट मतलब they'll get a new revenue source. Sugar won't be the only revenue source for those companies. And those premise pe there were a lot of companies which ran up, but suddenly when the government put a ban on that particular initiative, the sugar stocks did fall and they did not make much returns.
Hi guys, welcome to the new podcast. This week, Rupeeting's Common Sense by Rupeeting, and this week we have a new member. Not new member; he's a very old member, but he's new for the podcast.
Older than us,
So,
but new to the
older,
podcast.
yeah. Older. इतना भी बुड्ढा नहीं है, but yeah. So Aditya, you might want to introduce yourself. No, not like that. You have to introduce yourself. What is this, bro? This is not an Instagram live stream, bro.
Okay, so hi guys, I'm Aditya, and I mostly manage partnership stuff for Rupeeting on institutional and retail level. And from this week onwards, I'm going to join for podcast, enjoying very much with others for other three, right?
You lucky us. So, and as usual, me, Pratik, and Harsh also.
Hi guys.
So I think this week we're gonna talk about something which is important both from as a country perspective and as an investment perspective, because everyone knows that India has set a very ambitious target of reaching a carbon neutrality by the year 2070. I think Modi, when he made that speech, it was pretty popular. But I think that would be more like a structural change. It's not like something you can achieve in like a span of couple of years or more, like 5, 6 years. It has to be like a structural thing. It's a decadal story. Lot of things has to fall in place for that to happen. But I think even though we are at a very early stages for that to happen, it's very surprising and very good to see that so many initiatives which are taken in that direction are they are bearing fruits even in these early stages. So we're gonna talk about one such industry and a stock from that industry in this podcast, which is the biofuel, which is nothing but your ethanol, which are so the government has set for that particular thing. It is a very aggressive target of achieving 20% ethanol blend in the all the fuel that we use in our day-to-day vehicles, which is the petrol and all those things. And sugar being one of the main key feedstock for making ethanol. So it should make sense that sugar should also make a great investment. But that's not the story. And we're going to decode it today itself. Why it is not a good story. Main reason being that sugar is also used for uh, main thing, the eating and all the stuff. So inflation has to be kept in check, especially food inflation, which is I think the majority of the part of the whole inflation basket and pretty volatile in the past few years. And government, because of that, only government has directed sugar companies to stop channeling sugar for ethanol production because food is necessary. Ethanol maybe can be waited. So because of that, sugar stock underperformed, and uh, the whole sector kind of went through a slight downturn since last year or so. But just last week, that changed. The government actually lifted those restrictions thanks to inflation coming into the check. As we all know, that inflation is now coming under the RBI's tolerance band. So because of that, government has increased those ban on the making ethanol for using sugar to making ethanol. That resulted in spike in sugar stock. But now that problem is solved, now does the sugar stock make sense for a good investment? So, but still there are so many places which has to be taken care of. But today we're going to talk about a company which is I think a great alternative. It is not a particular sugar play. It is like so many plays. It falls plays into the biofuel as well, which is a Praj industry, and that might be a better investment I think to in the whole sector. So how Praj is poised to do and how sugar and everything is going on, that's where I think we're gonna discuss.
Fair enough. So I think
Yeah.
just to give context to what Chaitanya said earlier, so the government, as Chaitanya rightly mentioned, has given a target of 20% ethanol blending in fuels by FY26. So this particular percentage was just 3% or 4% in 2018. So basically,
Yeah.
the government is trying to increase it to 20% in the next. So this whole period for the in the next 8 years, right? And now currently India is at 15% ethanol blending into FY24. So I think within the next 2 years, will try to achieve the target of 20% by reaching there. And as Chaitanya said that sugar is very an important, let's say, raw material in the value chain of ethanol to produce ethanol, and hence sugar stocks ran up on the premise that शुगर है वो लोग इथेनॉल बनाएंगे उनका प्रॉफिट मतलब they'll get a new revenue source, so sugar won't be the only revenue source for those companies. And those premise pe there are a lot of companies which ran up, but suddenly when the government banned on that particular initiative, put a ban on that particular initiative, the sugar stocks did fall and they did not make much returns, and that was mainly because of inflation, which Chaitanya already said ki bhai, when there was inflation, the our country chose food over fuel. So that has been a problem. So first of all, just to get things starting, if Aditya, you could just explain like what is the value chain of ethanol, like how can you make ethanol from sugar, so that could give a good perspective to the viewers as well.
Yeah, perfectly. Starting that ethanol is not the sugar, and sugarcane is not the only source to create a ethanol. There are multiple other food feeds as well. Whereas there are particular classifications in terms of if we wanted to get started with sugarcane for the case, the sugarcane is first harvested, then it has been crushed down into sugarcane juice. Then there are multiple processes like distillation, dehydration. Then we get the as a end product as ethanol. Also, the leftover of sugarcane after crushing the juice, that we call it as a bagasse, can also be used either for energy generation, like in the form of thermal. It is a good coal substitute, or it can also be used to generate ethanol using a 2G generation process. Whereas maize, rice, corns, or other barley, or any other cereals or pulses or crops which are starch based can be used, and their food feeds or can also be used with the similar process to judge or to create a ethanol. Whereas the equipments which are necessary different in different processes with respect to the crops, and hence the Praj comes into picture while generating this or providing this engineering kind of stuff.
Okay, so basically you're saying that ethanol can not just be made from sugar, but it can be made from rice, maize, and
Correct.
all the other things which you
Or even
mentioned.
leftovers
And
as well, which
so
is picking up
basically,
nowadays.
yeah, once I make sugar and I make rice, and if there are any leftovers, I can use them into, manufacturing ethanol as well.
Correct.
And as you mentioned, that ethanol also has two processes, right? What was
Hmm.
that? One was 2G and the
One
other
was
is,
1G.
oh, acha, one was 1G and the
1G
other is 2G.
is correct. 1G is direct conversion of ethanol through the product, like let's say sugarcane. Sugarcane is a primary
Mhm.
product that we get directly harvested from the farms. So ideally, when I create ethanol from sugarcane or sugarcane juice, that is the 1G process. But when I create ethanol from the leftovers, maybe bagasse or rice husk or something like that, then it comes under the process of 2G process.
Acha, okay, got it. And so now, as Aditya already said, that that ethanol can be made from other sources as well. So, and as Chaitanya mentioned already, that sugar was a problem because of the inflation, and that is why there had to be restrictions on the ethanol production via sugar. So, but then if Harsh, if you could just tell, as in why sugar was a problem in itself, like sugar for ethanol was a problem, but why sugar in itself is a problem, so that people, viewers get to know that what is happening in the industry also.
Correct, correct. So hi. So basically, see, the problem with sugar is, so when we use sugar for ethanol production, as Aditya clearly mentioned, it will be a 1G product. Okay, and 1G means it's a edible thing. So basically, when the conflicts arises between food or production, the government of India will always choose food, because see, in India there's a huge population right now. Okay, and thus we need a good quantity of food, but also at a reasonable price. Okay, so whenever these companies will go and try to get directly sugar, it will increase the prices of sugar in the market, which will be not be good for the general public. Okay, so that's why in this cases, but this is not the case just for sugar. It will also be the case for maize. So it is also used for the starch of maize is also used for creating ethanol. Okay, so whenever a conflict of interest do arises, the government of India will always step in and try to prioritize food first, and that's why the ban was also given in 2018, as you can see, because of the inflation. When prices were rising, the government had to step in and cut off the inflation part. Apart from that, we can also see that even though the sugar prices are rising globally, okay, with Brazil being the largest producer of sugar, there's been wildfires there and droughts there, which has decreased the sugar supply in the market. But still, government of India has not allowed the Indian producers to export sugar. The reason being, again, to keep the prices reasonable for the general public and the quantity available for the general public. That is the main problem with 1G, as we can see right now.
So basically, you're saying that sugar itself is a problem, and as you rightly mentioned, I think I was also reading through a article or something that the sugar producers at the same time have also asked, to increase the minimum support price for sugar by 35%. I
Correct.
think that was a few years back, but the government has still not taken any action on that front as well. So that is also one of the problems which might not give incentives to the sugar producers itself to invest in the facilities and start generating more ethanol or start increasing the production as well. So yeah, but then if there are so many problems with just sugar, so then how should we invest in the ethanol theme? Like, that is the question. So if anyone of you could just give an
You only
opinion, or
decide. You're giving directives. Who has to speak? अभी बोलिए सर क्या करना है मैं कर सकता हूँ.
sir, please go ahead.
Thank you, thank you very much. So I think as their discussion is pretty clear that sugar is not so good sector to invest in. But that's not the only thing you can take a place to invest in a ethanol ecosystem. I think the company that we're going to talk about today is Praj Industries, which manufactures and sets up plants for making ethanol, biogas, and beer. Because there are many ways, as Aditya mentioned, to make ethanol from. So in ethanol production, actually Praj has about 60% market share in India and 10% globally. That's a big field value. And it's a patent holder to key some proprietary tech they have through which they make ethanol also. And their clients also are like Balrampur Chini, Godavari Biorefinery, and all your petroleum companies like IOCL, BPCL, HCL, HPCL, and all those things. So I think there are particular 4 or 5 things which makes Praj a interesting idea, because first of all, as Aditya mentioned, that starch sugar can be replaced by starch. So ethanol, not only by sugar. So you can also use rice and maize. And as per management commentary in Praj's order book, 75% of order book constitute of the starchy feedstock, which is not sugar. So only 25% reliance on sugar. Second thing is the blended ecosystem, as the 20% target that we talk about. The petroleum companies are also coming out and setting up ethanol plants. So for that, they need help from company who is an expert in those industry already, which is Praj. So all the equipments and all this, they're gonna source it from Praj itself. The second process to make ethanol, 2G, that is also picking up currently because of the over reliance on sugar and any food that can cause inflation. Everyone wants to reduce that, and also that sector also attracts a lot of regulation. In the case of 2G, that is not the case, because it's anyway a leftover waste. That's not many problems. Fourth, the sugar export is banned, but the export of the ethanol, that is not the problem. So 25% of the Praj's revenue comes from export. Ethanol being an equally high growth industry overseas as well. So that is also spreading rapidly across the globe. And other businesses also Praj also have other businesses such as 25% of the company's revenue come from business like manufacturing critical engineering equipment for various industry and supplying water systems for healthcare. This is not much for an ethanol system, but just for a diversification perspective. So this actually points out that how well diversified Praj is. So it's not overly dependent on any single particular, like sugar, definitely not. But ethanol, yeah, maybe, but that is the high growth sector. So that might be a good play to have a ethanol in your, if ethanol is in your watch list area, something like that to invest. So there are a lot of things that fall well for Praj.
Fair. So I basically there were multiple
Hmm.
reasons for saying why to invest in Praj. So just to
Yeah,
sum up, I
exactly.
think one would be increasing exposure to other raw materials for
Starchy raw
producing ethanol,
material.
and yeah, and not just sugar.
Hmm.
And then they have now a healthy order book. Then and that order book itself is also diversified. Like as you mentioned, 75% is
Hmm.
from other sources, and then they also make equipments for
Yeah, ethanol
producing
setting
ethanol.
plants.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that way also they are entering the ethanol sector. They are in
Hmm.
the ethanol sector. But what just caught
Yeah.
my eye was that oil companies also starting to make ethanol. I mean that is very logical कि भाई अगर fuel बेचना
Yes.
है तो दूसरों से
Yeah.
ethanol लेने से अच्छा खुद भी हम ethanol अगर बनाना चालू करें so that will be a good idea. So yeah, that was very interesting to see that oil companies entering into
Hmm.
the ethanol segment. So yeah, so what will be as the future for Praj? I mean, what do you guys think? Aditya, Harsh, if
अभी आप ही बच्चे हो सर, अभी आप ही बोल दो, हम सब लोग बोल रहे.
नहीं, I just wanted to know अगर ऐसा किसी को बोलना हो या कुछ तो बस पूछ
I
रहा
think
था.
we actually liked Praj way back in like 2021. Yeah, repeating also we bought for around 400. But I think after the regulation and all the restriction, we kind of sold, having made what 70-80%. But now
Mhm.
again, those regulations are lifted up, so we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. I think we have this kind of a thought process at repeating that we kind of stay we want to like to stay away from the businesses which has a lot of regulatory overhead, just because it is in favor currently. That should not be overlooked, that it can also be against of the company also. So that might not be in our watch list. But yeah, if someone has a like a good
High
appetite
risk.
for sugar or sugar companies, then they can. I mean, sugar is not good for you, but the companies might be. But as you mentioned, there is no. It's not a sugar company, Praj. It's like a diversified ethanol play. So if one can have a good appetite, then why not eat sugar? But again, this is not an investment advice. This is just for an educational
Educational
purpose,
purposes, guys.
and we advise you to consult your financial advisor. If you want us to be your financial advisor, then head down to the description below.
Yeah, guys, we have small
Yeah,
cases. We have a new product for retail investors called Voyager, and we
and we
have our
have
own PMS. Sorry, guys, had to do some
for
marketing.
not so retail investor. So
And you
yeah, these
guys
are
can
everything
contact
for.
Aditya also to get more information on the products as he manages
Yeah,
partnerships
he's the
from
guy to
repeating.
go. So please
Not
check.
only products, but also about partnerships, channels, and all the stuff.
Yeah, guys, so
Okay,
he's the
okay.
right
So
person
before
to
any
connect
more of a
with.
salesman from Aditya comes over, I think it's a wrap. So we're gonna see you guys in the next one. So that's it for this week. Hope you have a good day, good weekend. Bye bye.
Yes. Bye, guys. See
Bye,
you next week.
guys.
Bye bye.
See you.